Hello and welcome back to Gary's Garage, and in this episode we're going to try again to get the engine running. If you were watching last time, you'll have seen that we would have got frustratingly close to trying to get the engine running, but some of the wiring problems that I had just took longer than I thought to resolve, and unfortunately I ran out of time to do so. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a start at hooking up the temperature sensors that are still not connected on the engine bay, so that does mean a little bit more wiring to start with. Right, so that's 2 out of the 3 temperature sensors wired up and plugged in. I've left the one that goes on the pre-turbo on the filter because I'm not entirely sure yet what I'm doing with the filters and their brackets, and the position of them may change slightly, so I don't want to put the connector plug on and then have to subsequently move it because it's just a waste of wire and terminals. So if I fire up the laptop and power on the ECU, I should now see those 2 temperature sensors for post-turbo pre-charge cooler and then post-charge cooler, which is going to be my inlet air temperature sensor. I should see both of those giving me a nice value on the screen. So let's see if we get that. So ECU on, we'll connect, and let's have a look at our analog inputs. And yep, we've got inlet air temperature and post-turbo temperature both giving me a value that is correct. It is about 21 degrees in here, and that's exactly what I'm getting on those sensors. So that's pretty good, and that means that the fueling for when it's running will be closer to correct. I've still not got the oxygen sensors hooked up yet. So the next thing I'm going to do though is put a fuse in the fuel pump and see if it primes correctly and that we are getting the correct fuel pressure reading. So let's do that. Okay, that's all clamped down. Now I do have that other one at the front end, which is not quite on the bar, but I think it should be okay. So let's see if we can prime it and get some fuel pressure. Oh, that's not good. Damn it, that was done up really nice and tight and it hasn't made a connection. Let's clear this mess up and try to come up with a plan of what to do about this connector. Yeah, so that's quite annoying. As I just said a second ago, when I did these up, I made sure that the clamps were close to the flare on the barb as possible and that they were tight and they didn't move. Obviously that's not quite good enough. My only guess is that the hose that I had on here before was slightly smaller. Obviously that's not going to go on to the AN fittings I've got, so I'm going to have to figure out what to do with this fuel pump cradle, and I'm thinking it'll probably be take it out and put some AN fittings on here for the feed and return rather than these, you know, built-in pipes. So let's pull it out, get up on the bench and let's have a look at it. Unfortunately, due to the design of the pump hanger, I don't think I'm going to be able to easily put in the bulkhead fittings that I wanted to. So I think the only option is to try to find a smaller piece of pipe to put onto this outlet and squeeze it onto the AN fitting. I think that's the only thing I can do. So I'm going to put this back together and put it back in the tank. Okay, let's try again. 3-second prime. Okay, nothing spraying out up top. Aha, but we do have a leak. And we also have a leak underneath. I think I have a few joints that I have not fully tightened up. So let me go around, check them all, and we'll try again. Right, so I have gone round and there were basically every single one of the AN fittings I hadn't done up tight enough. So almost all of them were leaking. But that is now sorted. I am getting fuel pressure. The gauge and on the fuel pump, on the regulator here, and what I'm seeing on the laptop through the sensor are not, however, tallying up. The gauge on the actual regulator is showing 1 bar, and almost exactly 1 bar less than the pressure sensor. I'll have to go away and find out whether that is correct or not. But it's showing 2 bar on the pressure sensor on the gauge, and it's showing 3 bar on the PC. So I'll figure that one out. And I've run the fuel pump for 5 minutes constant, and it maintained the fuel pressure and no more leaks, so I'm fairly happy. I have also just bunged up this pipe which used to go off to the back for a vacuum feed, and this is the pressure sensor feed to the or the manifold pressure that goes to the ECU. So I think we're about ready to try starting it. Now there's no radiator, very minimal coolant, just what was left in the engine. So I've just looped the radiator hoses together. I will only be running it for 20-30 seconds at very most, just to make sure that it runs with no misfires, the coils are working and all the injectors are firing, and then that's it. So let's see what happens. So let's see what we get. Move the laptop out of the way. Okay, so let's do, right, we've got ignition on. Let's just turn it off again. Fuel pump will prime, and let's see what happens. Yes! Yes! Oh yes, what a sound! Obviously no exhausts, and it took that long to crank because all the injectors were just full of air. But it's working! Yes! Oh, I'm so happy. So happy. Ah, that's been months and months of work to get to that point. Now we're nowhere near finished. Nowhere near at all. But it is running! Yes! So it runs, yes, but that is by no means the end of the story. It is not going to be going back on the road anytime soon because there is still so much to do. And you may see over my shoulder here, I've got a bit of a list. A couple of things left on this red section over here, which was the wiring related issues. And then sort of purple is sort of the bare minimum to, I think, be able to get it moving under its own power. And then the blue stuff is then the rest. So I need to start working on this list. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is take the engine out. Even though I've only just got it running, there's a couple of things on the list that need the engine out, and that is finishing off that fuel hose, the feed onto the manifold or onto the fuel rail. That's pushed in just sort of halfway onto the barb. That really needs to go all the way, and then the hose clamp around it. And there's also the charge cooler pump that needs to be mounted. I can't get that mounted without the engine out of the way. So I think that's going to be the first thing to do, is get back to the front of the car and pull the engine out again. So that's the charge cooler pump bracket drilled, riv nutted. My riv nut tool finally arrived, yes, and secured to the chassis down there. So the next thing I want to do before putting the engine back in place again is to sort out some brake master cylinder reservoirs. So I've been umming and ahhing what to do with these for a while, and I was really hoping to reuse the one I had here, which I think came out of a Fiat Punto. It was nice and small, it kind of tucked in this area here, and when I had the master cylinders on this side of the engine bay, it was nice and easy to get the hoses through, and the master cylinders there also had a barb fitting on for a rubber hose. These new master cylinders I've got though have a normal threaded fitting for a normal brake pipe, and that was going to be a pain, and also trying to get the feeds through here, all the angles were wrong, etc. So I have bought myself a set of 3 universal Girling style reservoirs which have a normal threaded outlet, and these will go into a piece of solid copper pipe, and then they can go through, loop round where they need to, and onto the master cylinders. So I've been trying to figure out where these will go, and one thought was there in the middle, another thought was over here above the pedals. I was wondering about whether I could put them down here at some kind of angle here to leave that bit freer. And the problem is I don't really know how much height I've got and how far up these can sit. So what I'm going to do is put the brackets on for the fiberglass flip front and drag that in from outside where it's been sat for the last 9 months, and put it back on, and then I can lay it flat. I can crawl underneath the front, get my head up in the engine bay with a couple of torches, and I can find a nice position for this wherever it's going to go, mark it up, and then I know that I'm going to have clearance and not have to redo it. So let's go get that flip front. Looks like a car again! Yay! Unfortunately, this has taken a bit of a battering being sat outside. There's lots of bumps and dents in the lacquer. I think the water has got in it. It's a good job I'm doing something about the paintwork at some point, isn't it? But it's still a little bit floppy. This middle bit has always kind of sagged. That's why I added the extra support in the middle, which may or may not go back depending on where these reservoirs go. But what I'll do is I'll shuffle it into place and lock it up on the two sides. That should hopefully hold it in roughly the right position, and I can then block this up, hold this up to get the levels right, and then we shall go underneath and we will be the engine for a while, and we'll figure out what to do with these reservoirs. I'm going in. Oh, this isn't going to be very graceful. Oh. Okay, right, we are up underneath the flip front. And let's see what we can do with these reservoirs. So is there anywhere over here I can stick the camera, stick the phone? Not really. Can I wedge it somewhere? Okay, let's see how this looks. The plan is somewhere around here, but there is definitely not enough space there. Oops. Maybe if that was, and that does have quite a bit of movement that it can go. Don't know if I can shoulder it up into place. Let's have a look. Ow. Oh, that's my hand on the anti-roll bar link. With the flip front up, because it does need to go up. You know what, I reckon actually it would go there. If I put those as close to the bulkhead as possible and then lift the front, I think that is going to be where they're going to go. So let's work on that. And so I need to get rid of this slop from under here anyway, so I'm thinking probably I'll fiberglass in a support bar across here and stiffen up the brackets down on the front to stop it drooping at the front, which is part of the problem. If you look down the side of the car, you can see that the front panel is at a different angle to the rest of the car, looking down the silver stripe down the side. So I think I'll mount those there and then I'll adjust the flip front to match. So let's get this flip front back out again and I will put them here. Okay, so with this in place, there's still a bit of movement on that before it actually touches the master cylinders. So I'm pretty happy with that. So that's the bracket bolted in place. I can't do the pipe work for it yet because I'm missing one of these grommets, so I need to wait for that to be delivered. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the flip front back off, take this off, and all of the extra holes in the bulkhead I'm going to fill up and try to get it mostly waterproof. Okay, so that's all of the little holes filled in. The bigger ones I'm going to leave for the moment because there are a couple more things that need to go through. For example, there's the vacuum feed that goes to the ECU, and there might be something else that needs to poke through in the future, but for the moment these are the ones that I want to fill in. So as you can see, I've also removed the fuel pressure regulator and the heater hose inlets, and also the two electrical connectors from here. And what I'm going to do now is give this a coat of primer. That way it will be protected, and when I put the engine back in a few minutes, then hopefully the engine won't need to come out again. But you know what I'm like, it might go in and out 8 more times before it turns a wheel. But I'm hoping it won't need to come out again. So I'm going to give this a coat of paint now, and that will just protect it so that I can go out for a quick drive and not worry too much about this getting wet and immediately rusting over. So let's get some paint on this. Well, that certainly looks a lot better being painted, and it shows up, as paint always does, it shows up some of the bits that need a bit more attention, but as I said a moment ago, this is only temporary. It will be taken back and sorted properly at a later stage, but I want to get the vehicle on the road and just drive it around a little bit and just shake down the changes that I've made before painting it properly. So that's the engine back in and on two of its mounts, the one at the front and the gearbox one. It's still a little bit wobbly side to side because I haven't put the crossmember back up, which is what has the roll stoppers on, but that can come later. What I want to do now is dive underneath and put a little bit of sealant around the exhaust flanges and bolt the exhaust back on, and then I want to run it up again and just hear what it sounds like with the exhausts on properly. So I've just brought the laptop down and hooked it up, and I think we are about ready to give it a start. So let's see what happens. Purring like a kitten. Absolutely spot on. Absolutely lovely. And there we go. So yes, it does start twice, and unfortunately that is all I've got time for now. It's rather late and I need to get this video edited and up to you. So thank you very much for watching, and join me next time on Garry's Garage when I'll find something else to do on this mad crazy car. Thanks for watching. Bye.